Hey guys, and welcome back to another Working Game video. Today's video is dedicated to the basics of Colo. So let's get right into it. The first thing you're gonna do, go into battle, go into demon summoning info, and you're going to scout out which demons are going to be appearing. And the reason why you want to do this is to know which weapons that you should be carrying and also which weapons you should be saving for in order to successfully summon the demon on your side. So you want it so that when the demon is about to be approaching, that you have hammers and bows at the ready to pretty much get the demon. And on the second demon, we're going to have spears and swords available. And of course, supports will have their staves ready, and supports will have harps ready. So, ideally they bring more of these weapons, and our debuffers, they stay as debuffers, but our sorks, our minstrels and clerics, they will bring more of these weapons than usual. Now, the biggest thing that I also want to do is you click the opponent guild and you scout the team members so you know which pretty much people to target. And of course, you can check during the call of fight when you select the opponents and check like who has the CPs that they have or the points that they have. So you have targets to aim for. And ideally, you aim for the weakest opponent. Unfortunately, that way you can take advantage of Colosseum, because one person going down pretty much wreaks havoc. They lose their buffs, they pretty much cause disarray, there's less damage coming onto you. So make sure you aim for pretty much the opponent that you can take advantage of for the most part. I'm sorry, it happens to us too, and providing this advice technically bites us too, you know what I mean? So after this, you pretty much scouted. Now you need to have a designated shot caller. And by designated shot caller, let's go into my guild. You need someone who's going to be, hey, we're going to attack this person. And in the rear guard, you're going to have someone who's like, hey, we're going to heal these people. We're going to buff these people. For example, as a vanguard, I'm going to be asking, Sam, Lloyd, myself, Tofu, and Crane, we're going to be attacking specific people. And what I'm going to ask of them is, hey, aim for these two people and make sure during certain times, switch targets depending on who's more debuffed on the enemy side. And another thing I like to do is when the enemy seems like they're all very, very low, you cast AoE. Everyone cast AoE so that pretty much whether we're breakers or not, if everyone slams AoE at the same time and everyone's dying, we have a good chance of pretty much causing like the other team a lot of grief, because their entire team is dying and they're going to have to be reviving, etc, etc. And then for the rear guard, it's very important that they buff Sam and Lloyd, for example, so that they can get the most buffs, so that they can land the most kills. Because I know like myself and Tofu are quite strong, and so is Crane, but they're going to be the ones landing the most kills, and they shouldn't be aiming for these two because they'll be the most difficult to kill. Now you can aim for the hardest hitting person if you are just overwhelming in points. That works out just as fine. But essentially what's important is you have a shot caller saying things that what's going to be happening. And this rolls on to our next topic, where it's into the nightmares. So, we're not going to be in this specific section particularly. This is just to look at nightmares so that we understand like what's going to be happening. So for example, you have XYZ nightmares. You're going to be saying, hey, first nightmare we summon are buffing nightmares. And the reason why you want to summon buffing nightmares is because you want such things as library. You want things like Hateful Hound going off, and pretty much like the first two turns. You want library, Hateful Hound going off. And the reason why is because buffs pretty much last forever. And the reason why buffs last pretty much forever is because only debuffs can take them out. That's like how this game like essentially has it regulated. And once you have Hateful Hound and you have, library pretty much doing their thing, you want it so that next is you have either an idea of what you're going to be doing. You can do two things. The two things that you can do is either you can stall as in wait until it hits around like 17:30 on the clock, and then you summon Eris if you have Eris, right? Of course, someone will be designated for the Eris summon. Or you can do something where you do library, Hateful Hound, and then you do something like plant. And the reason why is you want to get around in that 17-minute area so that you can properly do this. Just note that it takes 1 minute to land this, and it's very, very risky in Colo. If you can time this perfectly where you summon Hateful Hound, library, and plant, it'll be very good. But usually you want to summon Eris around the 17:30 mark, 17 minutes and 30 seconds, because she takes roughly around, I believe it's like a like a minute and some change to summon, and as soon as like around like the 16:30 mark hits, demon should be approaching. And the reason why demon's approaching is because it summons right at like the 4-minute mark. That's the time it wants to summon, so you want to take advantage of that. Like, so we talked about it earlier. You scouted the demon, right? Because you scouted the demon, you have weapons ready at the 16-minute mark, so you can cast XYZ weapons, so you can take full advantage of what's going to be pretty much summoning. Next, after that, it goes pretty much into communication during the Colo fight. So it's going to be, hey, you know, AoE during this time. Hey, you know, cast Justice because we're falling behind in combos. Stuff like that needs to start being occurring. Colo, when you are down in points, comes down into the communication and how well you can, you know, meld together as a guild. I'm not saying that everyone has to talk, but you need at least one person who's willing to talk to do shot calls. And of course that person, you know, ideally you like that person because you don't want, you know, it's all about morale at the end of the day, and also it's all about learning. So you have to take advantage of the fact that your opponents, you know, when do you push them? When do you attack them? When? And I'm not saying, that's why it's hard to make a Colosseum guide, because it's all about timing during certain points. Even the nightmares that you summon, it varies. It varies, because you could do something like where, let's go back into my nightmares, right? View/cell, and then go into my nightmare section. You could technically summon Emil and then Hateful Hound and get just as crazy results, because you're going to be wiping them like in the beginning. Hateful Hound, and then, you know, Emil. You do those two, you just wipe them, right? Like, it's up to you and how you want to do it. Just note that shot calling is the most important part. Targeting, when to debuff, who to buff, that's going to be important. For example, if they're aiming only for Sam in particular and they want to take down like our top DPS, then we would only buff Lloyd. That way Lloyd can get all the damage. And let's say they're aiming for me, that you would skip buffs on, you would, you know, give me more defense buff and give everyone else more attack buffs, right? Like that sort of thing. Anyways, let's go into the menu section, and in the menu section you're going to go into help, and this is just to talk about like some of the things that you can do to understand Colo a little bit better, because this is in-game text. So for example, you cannot change your gear 30 minutes right when the fight is about to start. That's what this states. The next thing is going to be Colosseum support skills. So Colosseum support skills, Colosseum, there you are. You're going to want it so that essentially that you have a bunch of these. Notice this text in particular. If weapons possessing the same skill are also in your deck, the effect will be triggered at the same time. So the effects can trigger at the same time. So that means each individual Dauntless Courage, Support Boon, Recovery Support, etc. will have an individual proc chant they can stack. So make sure you take advantage of those Colo 8 support skills. And note, story skills cannot be used during Colo. That includes story skills from your armor. Anything story related will not trigger. The next thing that you want to look at is pretty much the skirmish time. And the reason why you want to look at the skirmish time is because the guild life force is essentially determined by how much guild level they have. And you will do certain things where it's like, do you stall during the skirmish time? Do you take it down? It's all up to you. Skirmish is very important, so you can get extra rewards as well. So try to take down the ship at least once. The next thing you're going to be going over is guild HP. Guild HP is based off of the guild level. The highest guild level that I know of in JP is level 100. Just take that into effect. We've already talked about demons, and the biggest thing that we need to go over is critical hits. Just note that a critical hit can occur, and that's why in, you know, PvP, you just randomly die out of nowhere when you're at full HP. It is different from triggering Dauntless Courage. It is different from triggering like Support Boon, all that stuff. It is completely different. Just know that critical hits can occur, and it is just an absolute one-shot. And finally, we're going to be talking about the rewards. Just note that participation rewards, you know, you personally participate, whether you set it yourself on auto or not. Skirmish rewards can only pretty much occur after you get to the enemy guild ship and you reach 0. And lastly, you know, victory and defeat rewards. But note, You cannot join Colosseum on the day you join a new guild, and consequently, you will be ineligible to receive any Colosseum rewards for the duration of that day. And days pretty much end at 10 PM PST for me, and they will end at your corresponding time depending on when your personal reset occurs. I'll have time, converters down below. So pretty much that covers it for my basics of Colosseum. Let's do a quick recap. Ideally you have scouts. You scout the enemy team. You have a shotcaller. You have a nightmare order. Those are the three bigs right there. All right, scouting, shot calling, and nightmare turn order. And if you lose faith in like the Colo fight, it's fine. Just at least practice doing nightmare, rotations. Just at least get the hang of that, just so you know what's going to be occurring in future guild fights. And of course, take your time. Like, don't focus on Colosseum too much if you can't handle it. But it's really good when you can start communicating, because the only time technically anything matters is during Grand Colo. But anyways, that's it for the basics of Colosseum for this guide particular. Like, comment, subscribe, follow me on Twitch, follow me on Twitter. I'll see you in the next one.